Welcome to No Set Definition. This podcast where success has no single meaning. You define it, you set it, and you call it.
Because success, let's face it, is not a one-size-fits-all. It changes, evolves, and it looks different for everyone.
And on this amazing show, we don't tell you what success should be. You tell us what success means to you. Everyone is a little different, and everyone has their own success.
That's why there's no set definition, because we ask people to share what success means to them in their own words through their own experiences.
So let's begin. We're back to another episode of No Set Definition. And today we're very lucky to have a good friend of mine, Victoria Jung, to join us. And in case you guys don't know, but she is the chair of Vancouver School Board. I don't need to introduce more because everybody knows who she is. And from the outside, she's a friend, a public figure, and a great leader in the Vancouver School Board. But I love to hear how you introduce yourself, Victoria, because I only see you from outside. I love to know how you introduce yourself from the inside.
Thank you for having me. First of all, it's great to see you. Good to see you, Jen. I would describe myself as bright, who loves to live here, who loves to be a representative for the people of Vancouver. Simple as that. I absolutely love this place and want to do the best job I can as cheerleader for the city and the people in the city.
I like that you're a politician, so the answers are really short. This is great. I like this because I think a lot of people, I come from a radio background, and it's like, I like brevity. That was great. To get know you a little bit more, do you feel that you've always been the main character of your life story?
I think so, because not having my own children has allowed me to focus a lot on myself. So yes, I do the things I love. I do the things I want to do. And I travel a lot, and I, spend a lot of time with family and friends. And so, yes, I have been the main character. Absolutely. I would say maybe a shift in the last couple of years to share that space with the entire city and the voters. But yeah, I'd say so.
And so if we could give you a documentary style show of your life, can you tell us where you started and how you got to politics?
How old am I starting here?
Wherever. It's your story. It's your documentary. Where set the scene. Where are we taking place? Where are we starting?
I think maybe it starts in childhood and growing up in a small town with immigrant parents who, had an accent that we didn't hear a lot of. And so it was always being a little bit different, feeling good about that difference. I think it can be tough in terms of belonging for a lot of young people, but it's also a unique part of who I am. And I really like, to stand out in a crowd if it's going to benefit me or the people around me. And so it was great being a little bit different, but then also, when you're growing up in a small town, everyone is community. And so it's a little bit different than growing up in a big city. And I had enough of that when I was in my 20s and moved to Vancouver. And so I slowly just started working and getting to know the city. And I have a wide range of friends because, I take pottery class and I play in a soccer league. And, I met Alex through work many years ago. So I've also met you, Jen, from, I guess, mutual friends.
Friends? I didn't know you knew Alex. That's why Vancouver's we hear it all the time. Vancouver's such a small city.
And so, to be honest with you, I got into politics because I did my master's with somebody else who was running and asked if I could assist with some door knocking or some help in some way. And, I didn't set out looking to be in my role, which I also think is an important piece for a lot of politicians, because if this is your career goal, oftentimes I think that comes with a little bit of bias or comes with a different set of goals. So I was really happy to kind of fall into this, because it means my lived experience was very different than a lot of these career politicians.
Mm-hmm. Jen, I'm not sure if I've told you, but Victoria and I first met through, our commercial real estate friends as well. And when I first met her, we were actually cooking together. She made this beautiful, delicious steak, right? And then she's telling me all about the door knocking, about politicians. And I asked her, like, you come from such an amazing engineering infrastructure background. And you make a lot of money. In a type of money, because Ken and I can share an earlier episode. We're talking about success defined really is wealth, happiness, and fame. And I asked you that question when we first met. Is you made a lot of money on being a consultant to the infrastructure and engineering, And then all of a sudden you switch over, not switch over, you add on politics to your bucket. But on the outside, actually people might not know, but politics doesn't really pay that much, right? But you add a lot of responsibility to it. So like, what makes you just all of a sudden just want to do that as well?
And to clarify, I think, there are some roles that you do that are good, some good money makers. And when I first started this job, I was working 2 jobs. And I think to do either of them justice required me to scale back. So after 2 years of doing 2 jobs, I realized that this is more fulfilling, to be honest, and I have more impact. And so, yes, I make a very small amount of money that could not maintain a family, which is why I also think politics has become a really inequitable thing for our city. I don't think it allows for proper representation. We don't have any single parents. We don't have any, to me as chair, it's public knowledge. I make $40,000 and that doesn't allow me to live in Vancouver. So I think, I understand why people don't want to get into politics. It's not great. And as you said, I've worked my whole life, so it's allowed me to be in a great spot to, give myself an allowance for my savings until this job is done. But it allows me to actually focus on the job and spend full time on the job, because I do spend many hours, whether it's going to student events or going to represent us as a community somewhere, whether it's downtown Vancouver or it could be, in a neighboring Metro Vancouver space representing schools.
For sure. And I think I also asked you when we were talking together, and I was actually there in your first inauguration into the school board. So I was super proud. But one of the questions, and I've noticed as well, is being a woman of color in politics. And I've seen that as well. There's not as many. Do you feel the need to represent more than yourself? Like, do you feel you have to represent women of color for that level?
I think representation is extremely important. I do think that as people who identify as women, it's important that we show young girls what it looks like to be to take up space and to be in these positions. When I was young and, our parents were laying out what the options were in life, it wasn't this, this was not a conversation. Without representation, I think it's often hard for young people to see themselves anywhere. And I really appreciate new governments over the last 10, 15 years who have actually focused on equity and looking at what it looks like to have people with disabilities, women, marginalized group being represented, whether it's at CEOs or in parliament. Like, these are important pieces. And if you can't see it, you sometimes can't even think it up. So young people need to see it. I'm happy to be on the board. It's actually pretty great. There are more women than men on the board. But again, that's traditional in education quite often. It's quite a maternal role. And it's really great to see some incredible men who have stepped into educational roles as well. So education, I think, is a little bit different than a lot of other companies. Certainly a lot of the industries that I was in before coming into this one. But yeah, it's great. It's great showing up and seeing young people. And I love seeing young people who want to do things that weren't introduced to me at their age.
And it's great that you want to be there as a woman, because recently they just had a news story global of talking about, the lack of women politicians across Canada. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit. And I think another thing that the reason that women don't want to do it is because now we're in the social media world and there's a lot of hate. Like, they just talked about the Regina counselor that was speaking up the other day. And she said she was getting tired of getting called a hot counselor online, and like a man would never get that kind of comment. So why is it okay? And then another thing that was brought to attention this week too in that news story was Saskatoon Mayor Cynthia Block, who was the first woman to serve as the city's mayor, says she used to get comments during her campaign that they're basically saying that she couldn't be mayor because she wasn't married. She's mayor now. So like, women, I think, get all these comments in politics that men would not normally get. And maybe that's another reason why we don't necessarily want to step into those roles.
Absolutely. Like we saw it in the legislature yesterday, someone being horribly misogynistic and being called out for it, and then them doubling down. And this is a man standing on the aisle across from a woman who has been elected by people to work with each other to benefit the people of the province. And they are spewing misogynistic, colorful words to each other that are super degrading. That I don't want to show up to work in a place that I don't feel safe and that I don't feel respected. But I'll be honest, politics is not fun. You know, I have had death threats. I have had, had to make many police statements and reports. So I think there is a level of keyboard warrior happening, but I also think that because of politics other places in the world, people are just, they don't care. They actually don't care. And so they'll come up to me and harass me on the street. And I am the lowest level politician there is in this city. And if it's happening to me, I cannot imagine what is happening to the people who are sitting at City Hall, at the legislature, or, in Ottawa. Like it's pretty gross.
And you were saying too, it happens not necessarily with the public, it happens in the workplace. And this makes me nuts because we talk about all the time about like toxic workplaces and corporate, and you can't be a toxic workplace anymore. You got to treat everybody the same. And then politics, it's like, okay, wait, we can actually be horrible in our workplace to each other. And I'm like, well, 1 minute we're saying we shouldn't be a toxic workplace, and then the next minute you're.
But I also think this is a beautiful part of democracy is we need to build into our policies what happens when this does happen inside the house. We need to make sure that if somebody at our workplace is inappropriate, that there are channels that deal with it. And I believe that, say what you'll do and then do what you say. And so whether, we sign in and we take a declaration or an oath and we say, I commit to supporting a healthy workplace, and I do this and this. Okay, well, when you don't, then what? And so we've seen this happen in politics. The last couple of weeks have been spicy in Vancouver. And so my question to these people are like, what accountability are you going to hold? What are you going to do? And so we as people can stomp our fists. We can sue. We can do whatever we want. But I think there needs to be a little bit more accountability and values and morals within the people who are stepping into these roles, which I think is important when you go to the voting ballot is, do I think this person is going to go out into the media to perhaps a group that speaks only one language and lie to them about something so that then, I don't actually have to be accountable for it? And I think that style is kind of gross and it's disappointing. And I think it's when you start lying to the people, maybe you've lost the plot. So let's pull this back and let's be accountable to our actions and just be good people for the people who trust you.
No, you mentioned about politics as being so much different, I would say, aspect, or whether it's you represent true to yourself or whether you're lying or whether you're at the top. How do you actually deal with different group of people in different languages? And I come from the corporate world. There's a leadership up in the corporate world is a very lonely road. You can't really be true to yourself sometimes. If you are too true to yourself, you're too authentic to yourself, some people just attack you, right? Oh, you're not strong enough to do this. You have kids. You shouldn't be promoted because you just gave birth, right? So I think for you, for a question to you as someone with, again, the quoted, with great power comes with great responsibilities. When I was actually up in leadership and still in leadership, but I found that it's really hard sometimes to break apart from being, you basically take work back home, right? I take work back home and then I'm feeling saddened by it. And then the next day I have to make sure that I clear my path and okay, I'm brand spanking new again. But it's hard when you keep on being attacked constantly. So how do you not take this emotionally?
Oh,
I want to hear from your perspective because you get attacked more than me and more than Jen for sure. Right? Because you're a public figure.
I think that there's a balance. When I don't feel anything by people attacking me, I'd be worried. I think that the why is really important to me, which keeps me going. I think, look, what am I doing here? Why am I actually here? I think that a lot, actually, because is it worth it? What am I doing? And I always get to the answer, yes, it's worth it. I don't think, I obviously don't want criticism. Like it's human nature to feel a little bit uncomfortable. But also, I love it because if somebody actually provides me with constructive criticism, it allows me to grow and be better. And this is a job where you have to do better and get better. Otherwise, like, you don't get reelected. And that's the beauty of it. It keeps you going. It keeps you learning. And I don't mind most of it. And sitting down with people who disagree with you is one of the most humbling experiences. It is, learning how to kind of step outside and listen. I was always someone who was thinking of what I was going to say while people were talking to me. And a lot of my job is just listening and actually hearing what people are saying. So it's been kind of magical sitting down with someone who doesn't think that a new school should be built. Like, I completely disagree. And there's an example here in Vancouver, and I completely disagree, but I invited them to the office. They showed up with, a group of them who disagreed, and I sat there and I listened. And their point is also valid. It's a completely different world now than it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so, I need to take that into account. But a lot of people just want to be heard and are struggling with a lot of the change happening in the city. And I'm trying to be compassionate to that because I hope that others would be the same about me disagreeing with them.
No, for sure. And I want to echo that because one of my mentors gave me a very good quote. It's, if someone gives you a feedback, whether it's constructive feedback or negative feedback, they actually care about you, right? Because they take the effort to yell at you. They take the effort to actually listen to what you said, formulate their own opinion, and then say it back to you. Whether it's very colorful or uncolorful, but they actually take the time to listen to you, right? So they actually prepare. Exactly. Yeah. Jen, you're offline. You're not talking.
Criticism actually makes you successful. And the reason I say this is because I used to work in radio and people would criticize you all the time. And the thing is, people don't write nice things, or they don't write things when they're like indifferent. So if you have no feedback, that doesn't mean you're doing nothing. But the minute you get criticism is great. Like, this is what one of the old broadcasters told me, because he's like, you're getting under the skin of someone. Because you got to remember, it takes time. Like, I don't know, all these keyboard warriors, I don't know what they're doing, because I was like, how do you have time in your day to like sit there and actually write something to somebody? I was like, wow, like, you must really have made an impression on them for them to like get out and like actually do it, because I've never really commented on anything. I'm also scared because if I ever do anything in the public, I don't want them to come back and take like shots on my tweets and things like that anyways. But also I'm like, wow. So criticism, I would say, is another great point to being a successful person in a weird way, because if no one's criticizing you and saying anything to you, then really, are you making a difference?
Yeah, you're invincible. That's not invisible to them, right? Whether if no one's talking about you, no one is listening to you, then you're really nobody, right? So it's good to be criticized. It's good to be yelled at in a certain aspect. Hopefully not every day, right? But it's a positive over negative.
And it sucks. And it sucks to have criticism. I've been criticized, but you just go get some Ben and Jerry's and you turn on some Netflix and then you chill for a bit and then you get out there. The nice thing with social media, I will say, and I do understand you do get it to your face, unfortunately, sometimes, but with social media, I find that it is a barrier. A lot of them are on the social. So you're like, okay, just throw the phone away for a little bit.
I actually disagree, Jen. I think, so again, I want to bring this back to my mentor. Her name is Trish. Her name is Trish Val. And she always say criticism and feedbacks are gems. We actually, you can listen to a criticism, you'll listen to a feedback. And whether you agree with it or not, but someone, again, constructively giving you that feedback, you can actually grow from that, right? Because you have your perspective, you have one perspective, but everyone else has their perspective. Just as what Victoria said, they want to let that small group of people they come to you, you listen to them, and you understand their perspective as why a new school shouldn't be built. So you actually take the time and understand them. So I think criticism is very important to growth and for career and for anything, actually.
It also has helped me have more gratitude for people who are doing great things. And I really try and send an email, or I write a lot of handwritten cards now, because so many people are doing such amazing things. Nobody hears about it. Nobody actually says, hey, Jen, hey, Ian, you guys have been doing a great podcast. Thank you. You're providing a great service.
So I'll be getting a card from you, Victoria. Thank you.
Can you answer a review for
God, but I just think people go about their days, and there's a lack of gratitude in our society, and just telling people like, you're doing a great job. It's free and it's easy, and to be like, I really enjoyed your talk, or sending a note. I actually sent Jen. You were talking about radio. I sent.
Did you send an angry message to someone?
I sent a message to CBC's Early Edition one morning when I had it on, and I heard them doing a focus on something that I think is needs more focus, and it's just not getting the attention it needs. And I just sent a note to Early Edition at CBC or whatever. And like 6 months later, the producer saw me and said, "Hey, thanks for that email." And I was like, "What email?" I'd completely forgotten about it. But in the moment, I sent the email, and it was just really sweet to hear that they received it and appreciated it. And I think
we love like positive feedback, but no one does it as much, and that's why I like it's so nice of you, because in radio we would get some things, or I would find too when you would leave a radio station, and this probably too one day when you leave politics, people do miss you and you don't understand until you go. And then I'd have people being like, "Where'd you go?" And like, "We loved you." And I'm like, "Why didn't you say this while I was there?" Like, I felt so unappreciated. And like, all the listeners are like, "Wait, where are you?" But they don't say anything till you're gone.
yeah. Well, I think that goes back to Yin's like leadership about being lonely, and about, it is lonely at the top, but when you're a leader, when you're a leader and you're managing people, you don't get the same feedback because everyone's worried about themselves. Everyone's only ever thinking about themselves. And I recognize that. But it is what I think makes a great leader. In our organization, we have one superintendent who manages almost 10,000 employees. And I think that must be one of the most lonely positions, because you are just the boss of everyone, and everyone's constantly looking up to you or worrying about what's happening. And I think what we try to do is acknowledge that it's a lonely job, and you're doing a great job. But that's why I think I've had the success in my role as chair and being reelected over and over, is because I have an incredible role model in our superintendent, who's a woman who came into the district not knowing anyone at the highest level position. And so relationships are the most important thing at that point. It's not about ruling with an iron fist. It's about building relationships. And so it's been great for us all to see. Again, it's a form of representation and showing us how to be a good leader. And so I think that's helped me become successful in my role.
Yeah, I was going to say community helps you be successful as well. And having those mentors and people in your corner help you become successful, because, hey, like you said, it is lonely. And if we don't have those people in our lives, it is going to be hard. What do you think, Victoria, then is your 3 keys to success?
Mm-hmm.
Integrity, like say what you'll do and do what you say, I think. And I don't know where that's a super strong in my life. Even if it is a dinner party, if I've committed to it and I really don't feel like going, I just show up, whether it's for 10 minutes or an hour. I make sure to show up, because I do think our word is an important part of who we are. I think progress does not happen in isolation. It happens in community. Doing this, talking to other women leaders who you respect, or your peers, or someone you can learn from. I think community is the most important thing for anyone's mental health, physical health. I just started a new pottery class, and the woman who I'm sitting next to, who's a retired school teacher, who's the sweetest woman, invited us all to take her yoga class on Sunday morning. like that is how community is built, and it's opening up your heart to others. Was that two? What's my third one? What was the question?
I said, what are your 3 pillars of
Recipe for
success?
success.
Yeah,
I think you said
community.
3. You said integrity,
Yeah.
community, and what was the third one?
I think just being kind to people.
Kindness is a great, and we had brunch on, and we talked about kindness and humility, which people don't necessarily associate with success, because success in the old school is that picture of the person stepping on everybody to get where they need to go.
So I guess the last bit would be, you said the 3 recipes for success. And all my question to you is, do you consider yourself successful currently? And what's the gap that you think in the future, or like the focus, right? Because a couple things always, we define success as fame, wealth, and happiness. Do you get all 3 today? Or do you think that you're working on different priorities each day?
I think that those 3 things are really important, but I think everything is a scale. So if I'm super happy one day, it might mean, like, I'm super happy right now. Am I making a lot of money? I am not. I am happy. I'm happy because I get to wake up every day. I get to help build sustainable policies that impact students and families. I get to meet with community leaders who also help build a beautiful, safe environment for us to live in. And I think, but some days when, I look back on other parts of my life when I still think I was, fairly successful, I was perhaps not as happy, but making more money. And, I do think there is a balance, and, it's day by day.
I love that.
Well, end on this then. Curious, because it comes up all the time, and you mentioned that a few times. It's come up in our other episodes. Is, do you think you need to have a lot of money to be successful?
No. This is really tough because I know I'm in a role where I identify as successful, but I'm also part of a group that has had success financially previous to this, because I can't live on a $40,000 salary, which means I'm taking money from my savings, and that is a very privileged position that I'm in.
Yes.
And to create a truly equitable space, I think it would look different. So I want to recognize that.
There's no right or wrong answer. I just want to know. This is what I just, because I was listening to another podcast yesterday, not one of ours, but they were just talking about, why is everyone think that success is tied to money?
And also a lot of people on the outside, Victoria and Jen, is they see politics and politicians as these very wealthy individuals, right? But really, you guys don't get paid very much. It's your passion and to do better and continue working in that environment. So that's something that I think I'm missing in the gap from public to yourself, right?
And I will say, I can define success when somebody contacts me with an issue and I'm able to put them in touch with the right person, or get it dealt with, or, be able to navigate it with them. And at the end of it, they're like, okay, great, we're sorted. That's success as well. Like, because a lot of my day to day is looking at ways to improve. And if it's, putting someone in touch with the right person, or it's building a new policy for cell phone use in school, these are all successes. So I guess, is success the sum of all of its parts? I don't know, but I feel happy. I like my job. I get to learn every single day. Every single day I learn something new.
So that's in the future for you, Victoria. Just like, what's the future projection?
Future projection, I am in the process of, campaigning for my next political position, which hopefully will be on October 17th, 2026. I will be a city councillor. That's the goal. I think that there's a lot of work to be done in the city, and I would like to leave my position with having represented the people and represented a woman in this role, so that other people will say, I can do that too. That's the goal. Because I have some university degrees, and I'm not the smartest person in the room.
What's a master's degree? That's pretty smart too.
But I will say, it's about working hard. It's about showing up, and it's about just being kind to people. And you can get a lot done by doing just that.
And we'll leave it at that. But I want to say, if you haven't thought about it, again, I found the actual information. Across Canada, women make up around 31% of all elected officials in municipalities, while only 22% of mayors are women, according to a 2023 report. But this news story was just a few days ago. So if you haven't thought about it yet, maybe political future is something that you might want to define your success with. So we need more women.
We do. And I hope that people listening realize that that this is exactly what we want. We want representation. So we want people who don't know anything about politics, but are passionate about something and know that they have a skill set that can benefit the community. And like I said, I had no political experience going into this. I sat on a board many years ago, but I want to encourage people because politics will always be there. And whether or not you're involved or not, decisions are going to be made for you. So it's important that you engage and you be part of the decision making.
And that's the thing too, is I think that's another hurdle that people don't think about is women. A lot of times we're probably like, oh, well, I did a career in this, like yourself. And now I want to get into politics, but it's too late, or it's not like I'm not going to be able to jump in because I didn't study politics. That's not the case. There are many people in politics that don't necessarily have a background in politics. My advice to people would be, because I've done it in the past, is go volunteer for campaign, because it's just fun. Regardless if you're going to go in, it gives you a little bit of a taste of what it's like, because you get to see behind the scenes and you get to meet cool people that become friends.
And you'll learn a lot, but also men step into roles all the time that they feel like they're not qualified for because they think they can learn on the job. It's time that women do the same. They're super qualified, and if people can multitask, women are really good at multitasking. So whether you're learning a new skill or offering what skills you do have, I think it's important to take risks. And if I've learned one thing from my experience in politics, it's to take more risks.
I absolutely agree with you, because this is actually came back from, I was actually having a career conversation with a women leadership as well. And we're saying you have so much potential, you have so much potential, so much experience. But when you look at a job description of, let's say, a new role or a leadership role, and if you fit, let's say there's 10 criterias, if you fit 6 of those, a man would easily step in and say, I want to try out for that role. But as a woman, we're like, oh, do we doubt ourselves? Like, we only have 6 of the 10. Do we need 10 out of 10 in order to actually qualify for that role, right? I mean, that's some of the hesitation. Women kind of doubt themselves, but we shouldn't doubt ourselves. We should just go forward, launch, and you just try new things.
There we go. I think that is the message at the end of this episode, is just apply for what you want to apply for on your road to success. Thank you so much, Victoria, for jumping on with Alex and I. That has been another episode of No Set Definition.
Great to see you, Victoria. Beautiful women. Talk to you soon.
Great conversations like this remind us why this podcast exists. Because let's face it, there's really no set definition of success.
And it's really your path, your timing, and really your vision.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it.
Make sure to follow No Set Definition wherever you listen to podcasts.
Until next time.
Thank you.